Good afternoon, and welcome to the Marine Science Career Panel for BIMS Week 2021. I'm Leslie Townsell, the COO of BIMS, and today's panel will be moderated by Monique Pohl. Before I get started, I wanted to remind you to put any questions in the YouTube chat. And if you're in the DMV area, we have something special for the first 4 people to tell us in the chat. Monique Pohl, finalist in the CNN Hero 2015 Award, is the founder and director of Green Heritage Fund Suriname. For many years, Pohl worked as an unpaid environmental activist to ensure a green and healthy future for Suriname. Today, Monique is known as the Sloth Lady, working to rehabilitate and relocate sloths losing their homes to climate change. I'll pass it over to you, Monique.
Hi, welcome to Black in Marine Science Week 2. I'm Monique Pohl, and today's panel discussion is a youth-focused career panel on various marine science jobs. And although I'm known as the Sloth Lady, I also work with dolphins. And so that's the reason why I'm doing this moderation. So this panel today is co-sponsored by UMB Cure, and as students will be inside the Zoom room. The event will be live streamed to our YouTube. And well, we have an awesome group of panelists lined up for you today. And I'm really excited to introduce them. And if I could choose again, I would become a marine biologist myself. So, okay, first up we have Brianna Jones. Brianna, please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Brianna Jones. I am from Gulf, Mississippi. I work for the Nature Conservancy in the Oceans Program as a Ray Conservation Fellow. And within that, I help work with the kelp restoration, coral restoration, and oceans plastic team.
Thank you, Brianna. Then we have Dakri Godosolo, and he is going to tell a little bit about himself.
Hello, I am Dakri Godosolo. I am a policy fellow at the Electrification Coalition. I am also a Ray Fellow, which is Roger Arliner Young, who's one of the first Black women to get a PhD in zoology. So it's a great program. I'm based in DC. Pronouns are he, him, his. Really excited to be here.
Thank you, Dakri. Then we have Nyasa Sadebe, and she will introduce herself. And excuse me if I didn't pronounce that really the way it should be.
Okay, hi, I'm Nyasia. I am from Philly, and I am a science fellow at Oceana, where I help provide science and technical support on a number of conservation issues regarding the ocean. Really excited to be here.
Thank you. Then we have Dr. Stanton Belfort. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Stanton Belfort. I am currently an associate professor and the program coordinator of biology here at the University of Tennessee Southern. I do find time during certain parts of the year where I transit to my native country, Trinidad, to do research on the coral reefs.
Wonderful. That is not so far from Suriname. And then as last on our panel, we have Larita Alomasser. Please introduce yourself, Larita.
All right. Hi, everyone. I am Larita Alomasser. I am the founder of STEM Brains, Inc., which is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to connect communities to inspire young minds in STEM. I am also a former oceanographer, physical oceanographer with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Since Brianna mentioned that she was from Mississippi, I wanted to throw out there that I'm from Mississippi too, but I'm currently in Maryland.
Okay, so thank you, everyone. So, and we are going to have like a free-flowing discussion. So whenever I ask a question, any one of you can answer. So be a little bit, mindful of the others. But and I'm sure we're going to have a wonderful discussion. Okay, so the first question I have is how did you get into your career? Oh, who wants to start with this?
I can take the first swing at it.
Yeah.
So I got into energy. I'm not unfortunately not in the marine sciences, but I got into energy because I was looking for a summer job in DC, and I was like, I need to get paid. So it has to be a paid internship. And I found this incredible program called the MEISP program, which is, I'm not going to do the whole acronym, but it's MEISPP. And it's a program run out of the Department of Energy. That's sort of where I got my interest in energy. And then a couple of years after that, I was graduating from college, was looking for things, was also like, I need to get paid. I need to find a job, and stumbled across the Ray Fellowship, which has been such a tremendous opportunity. The Ray Fellowship being a fellowship that helps recent graduates of color get into the conservation and energy fields. And I'm sure we'll be hearing more about that.
Okay, so who's the next who wants to tell us how you got into your career?
I'll go. So I originally started my undergraduate career in forensic chemistry and then ultimately changed it to pre-pharmacy, and once again realized that wasn't for me. So with the help of my mom, I just kind of connected back to my inner child and focused more on things that I like to do instead of looking for a paycheck, like Dr. said. So I went into the marine biology field where I got my bachelor's at the University of Southern Mississippi. And after graduating, I also was just endlessly scrolling for jobs, and I stumbled across the Ray Fellowship, which is once again an awesome opportunity. I met Dr. and Asia, and we also have about 18 more fellows, and our cohort is amazing. I can't emphasize that fellowship enough.
Thank you. Who's next?
Oh, I'll go next. So I got into my career. I actually started out in meteorology. I attended Jackson State University, Jackson State University's meteorology program. And while I was at Jackson State, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, they have a lot of partnerships with Jackson State University. So that kind of gave me some exposure to learn more about the agency. And I was actually able to do quite a few internships while I was an undergrad student. And so it kind of gave me the opportunity to also explore what some of my interests were. And I kind of landed in GIS that was more on the oceanographic side. And so that's kind of how I fell into like the marine science. So with NOAA, if you have like a meteorology degree, since the sciences are so similar, you can also do some oceanography work too. And so, that kind of opens up your career paths if you want to try some new things. So that's basically how I fell into my career.
Okay, I have a lot of other questions that come up, but let's first hear from the others.
Yeah, so when I was in school, I was really into research. When I was in college, I loved doing research. I did crab research over at Scripps Institution of Oceanography. And I did research in labs in our department. But I wasn't sure what I wanted to study in grad school. So I knew I wanted to take a couple of years to maybe work in the field of conservation and see if working in the nonprofit landscape was what I ultimately wanted to do. And it's very difficult, I will say, to find opportunities in between the space when you're done with college, but not quite yet in grad school, if you want to go to grad school. And a lot of places are increasingly requiring that you have a master's degree at least in order to work as a career scientist on their teams. So I was lucky enough to find the Ray Fellowship to put me like sort of in contact with orgs that were looking for people like me. And as Brianna and Bakri mentioned, it's really been a great opportunity. And I'm excited to kind of navigate and find my niche within marine science in that way, because there's so much out there. People ask me questions. They're like, oh, like, can you tell me about like whales or something? And I'm like, I don't know anything about whales. I'm sorry. There's like so many topics. So yes.
So then, Dr. Stanton, how did you get into your career?
I had a great high school teacher that took our class to the reefs in Trinidad. And I'd have to say the next thing is opportunities. In the Caribbean, back in the, I guess, 90s, the main thing to get scholarships to come to the United States were soccer and track and field. So I was fortunate to get a soccer scholarship to come to the United States. And I went to grad school, and the same location where my high school teacher did research, I did my master's thesis on that same place. So the effect of a high school teacher to introduce that was like really cool. And then I learned to scuba dive, and that was it. After that, the underworld just opened up after learning to scuba dive.
Yeah, so I actually, my next question would be, who of you have been scuba diving? But we'll first do another question because there's so many things I want to ask you. But well, let's, what does a day at your job look like? Well, of course, now with the pandemic, I have to ask before and after COVID. So who starts this time? Dr. Stanton, you want to start?
Sure. My day actually, all day, every day, game day begins with trying to turn students to come over to the dark side of science. That's literally it every day. But I do pre-pandemic, I do take students to Trinidad to conduct research on the reefs. We can't do that again. In fact, the beaches are actually closed. So, and I don't know the status of travel for the next year, at least at my college. So, what do I do instead? The samples that we've brought back from previous years, we do genetic analysis. And that really answers some cool questions in science. It also helps train students in genetic techniques as well. And grading, that's a lot too.
Okay, who goes next? What does your day look like now and before COVID? Zachary, you want to?
Yeah, sure. I got hired during COVID, so there is no before. So I will keep this brief because like wake up, sort of do my little morning routine to put me like in the work space, sort of start clearing off all of the distractions I have on my desk from the previous night, whether it sort of be just something I was doing with my hands. And then it's a lot of sort of rapid response with different policies that are happening, especially with the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act and Build Back Better. We've been tracking those for the past couple of months. So sort of a lot of writing fact sheets, a lot of speaking with legislators and decision makers about the best ways to sort of capitalize on these like super huge investments, but also just to electrify transportation in general.
Thank you. Who goes next? Brianna. Oh, sorry.
I'll let her swallow her water and I'll go next. So I did have the opportunity to work with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration pre and post COVID. When I first started, well, the last job that I had there, I was a physical oceanographer, as I mentioned before. And the agency or the program office that I work for, its responsibility was to collect water level data along with meteorological data. We also had over 200 and something sensors or tide/water level stations that were installed all across the country. And as you can see, that's a lot of data. We also reported out on that data or shared that data every 6 minutes. So we also shared it real time. So one of the things that needed to be done was the data needed to be processed. And it also needed to be verified in a real time way. So I did a lot of quality control for that data that came in. And then I also, as I mentioned, we had water level sensors that were installed. And so I worked with different teams to lead those projects to install a few of those sensors. So that was a good opportunity for me. But basically, you kind of sit at your desk in front of your computer, you're able to, communicate with your coworkers. So honestly, the only difference post-COVID is that I did it at home. So my job didn't really require me. I didn't have the fun part of actually going out and installing a station and having to, do the diving or, putting anything together. But, I still had access to the data. We used it for different applications. We also used it to share information about what the water levels were doing during severe storms or, hurricanes and things like that, those different types of events. So that's basically it. So, NOAA is a great place to work, if you like the telework, because you can do your work in the office and at home. So it didn't make that big of a difference.
Yeah, that sounds great. So who goes next? Either Brianna or Nia?
I'll go.
Yeah.
I just laughed. I saw someone say, does everyone read a ton of articles while sipping your coffee each morning? That's a really cute way to put it. I like to imagine that's what I do in the mornings, but I probably don't look as glamorous or like how you're imagining. I look like all sciencey, like probably pretty crusty. But I also got hired during COVID, so most 99% of my work happens on the same computer. However, there are opportunities even during COVID to kind of do things, whether it be sort of distanced meetups in parks and things with coworkers, or some conferences are happening. So if you're lucky enough to get hired at a place where they'll send you places to talk about the cool science that you're doing, that's an option. So I just wanted to point that out as we're entering whatever stage of COVID this is. I work on a number of different projects for our team. The main one that I've been doing has been sort of tracking negotiations happening at the United Nations. So it's actually been a lot of like reading these dense like policy like documents and like going to like international like online meetings and things like that, which was quite different than anything I've been used to. So that's been really exciting. And I do a lot of reading on fisheries and a lot of prep work for projects next year that I'm going to be doing on fish and nutrition systems and the role that, seafood can play in helping fight world hunger. So that's really exciting. And I guess in essence, it's sitting with my newspaper, reading coffee, drinking coffee while reading, but maybe just slightly a bit more complicated.
Thank you. That sounds, a lot like I do, like lots of little things in the morning. So Brianna, what does your day look like?
So my day varies each and every day. I'm in the process of trying to form a habit, but prior to COVID, I was in college. So I got hired in the midst of COVID. And just last month, our office opened. So I have the option to either work from home or just go in the office whenever, I feel like it. But yeah, I'm still in the process of like forming a habit of my daily morning routine, but my work day just consists of going through the different ocean teams that I'm in. So I'm working with the kelp restoration, coral restoration, and also oceans plastic. And my workload for the day just honestly depends on what is due, like the urgency of the matters. So yeah, since I just recently started with this team about 4 months ago, I'm still kind of finding my interest. And also I jumped in the middle of like major projects as well. So I'm doing a lot of science strategy work. TNC is a science-based organization. They're really trying to put science facts out there behind what's going on. So I just help them to implement different science strategies upon the different teams that I'm in.
Thank you. So the next question, we have several questions still, like we want to go through, but I think there's a very nice question in the chat. So I would like to go to that because it more or less fits, how did you get into your career? So who are some mentors that inspired you to choose the career that you're at now? And what lessons did you learn from them? So who wants to answer that?
I'll go first.
Okay.
So I honestly didn't really have any mentors that was in my field or just helped me to choose this career path. Honestly, in undergrad, like my advisor who was supposed to be my mentor was honestly a terrible person. And she straight up told me like I shouldn't go to graduate school. And so I went to the University of Southern Mississippi. I'm from Mississippi. So Mississippi, you can expect that. But just for someone who was there to advise me to just straight up tell me like, I don't think you should go to graduate school because I didn't know what I wanted to research. So, but what continuously like inspired me to keep going was just my own self-worth. I saw self-worth within myself. I wanted to make myself happy. I wanted to make my family happy. So I just kind of had to mentor myself, which in the long run, it worked out good for me because I'm here right now speaking to all of you. But you will come across like hardships like that in life. And at the end of the day, you just honestly have to trust and believe in yourself. If you have a vision, like you had that vision of yourself in your head for a reason because it's honestly reality. You just have to keep working towards it. That's just how I get through my day.
Wonderful. I really like that you found really the power in yourself. And actually I'm a linguist by training, but I'm doing marine science, which sounds weird, and I work with animals. So it's really about doing what you like and finding the confidence to do that. So yes, completely agree with that. Who wants to tell about their mentors? Or I would be surprised if all of you were like Brianna and found the strength and the mentoring within themselves. I hope some of you had mentors that can inspire others as well. Nobody?
I can go.
Yes.
I would like to say I'm like Batman or something and like I just raised myself, but no, as amazing as that is, I have had the pleasure of having a bunch of really amazing mentors sort of guide me along the way. At Scripps, I had like a great team there. It was Jane Taranis and Jennifer Taylor, and they really I feel like invested in me and made me sort of feel like science was something that I could do, which I felt like was key because even if you're not working on necessarily the exact project that you want to be working on, or like you're not working, at the exact right place that your interests really are. If you have someone that I think you find that can vouch for you and that supports you and that when you come into work, they say, you're amazing, you're doing great, that can really change your entire outlook on everything. Because before I had that experience, I was like, oh, I'm not good at science. I came from, an inner city public high school. Like, I don't have the training. I'm not gonna like make it here. And it wasn't until someone like sort of invested in me, I feel like, that I began to invest in myself. And so I would say, like, wherever you are, like, try to find that person. Like, it could be someone who is working in HR, or like the secretary that you see every day. Like, it doesn't have to be like, the scientist that's doing the science that I want to do, because it can really like help you, I think, with your mental health.
I think this resonates with Larita, isn't it? Because I see you nodding, and this is what you do, getting people into STEM.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with her, 100%. Sometimes there are going to be a lot of people that are out there that are dissenters, they're going to disagree. They're not going to encourage you, but you definitely have to, find that person that's going to be there to empower you. In the STEM fields, sometimes it can be really, really challenging for us because there aren't a lot of people that look like us in the STEM fields. And then the people who don't look like us, they're not as invested in us or invested in our careers. And sometimes they are really, really discouraging. They're discouraging in our talents. They're discouraging in, what we can accomplish. And, when we go into these fields, we definitely need to have like a really big support systems. So you can, just make sure that when you're looking for a mentor, that you find somebody that is empowering you to reach your goal. And that's, basically all I have to say for that one, because sometimes it can be hard to find a good mentor. I've had, several good mentors, and I've had some, not so good experiences with mentors too. But, I think the ones that were the best were people that really, had my best interest at heart and really wanted to see me succeed. So I think if you are looking for a mentor, just make sure that they have those types of characteristics, because if you don't, it may be a little bit harder for you to, get to where you're going, or you might be a little bit more discouraged than you may need to be. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
That's a good topic. That's a good topic for a grad student session too, because man, we have stories about past mentors. Whew.
So that's all. Yeah, I see you're very active in the chat, Stanton.
Yes, that's just the educator in me.
Wonderful, thank you. Yes, Dakri.
Yes. So yeah, when I started my internship at the DOE, I had just declared my major in environmental science because I was and didn't really have any plans on what I was going to do with it. I was like, the climate's not snapping back like this. So like the job security is pretty good, unfortunately, very sadly. But my dad sort of encouraged me to do a science degree as opposed to environmental studies. But I was at the DOE, had landed this internship, which I thought was a scam because they were paying me and housing me, and it was great. And it's the first day, and they're like, so what do you want to do? Like, what are your interests in energy? And I had to sit there with the dumb look on my face because I hadn't really thought about it until that exact moment. I just sort of answered, I want to do environmental justice work because I think I want my work to touch on communities of color, disenfranchised communities, low-income communities. I always want to center my work around helping those communities. And so I got involved with a project looking at the nexus of energy efficiency and resilience. And the lead on that project, Mike Specian, became my mentor in a huge way, because on top of sort of when I was coming into the internship, it was like, I want to do energy justice. And I was like, they're like, okay, but like, what type of products do you want to make? Like, what are you trying to take away from this experience? I was like, I want to get published, I guess. I sort of like said it without really thinking about it. But I think a little less than a year later, I did get published. And it was like all because he had sort of believed in me and sort of had really included me in the process. And we had stayed in touch. So I'm just tremendously grateful that I met him. And I think once I got that first publication, and I was like, nobody can tell me anything. That was a great sort of boost for confidence. So it's nice when mentors can help provide a lot of access to opportunities.
Yeah, so is there anyone who wants to still say something on this particular, because I see all these questions coming in the chat, and there are really some great questions here. Actually, yeah, you want to?
Sorry. Yeah, I would like to add something because I know my mom will probably watch this and she might go off on me. But my mom also is like a great mentor, because even after I graduated and we were like in the height of the pandemic, she still encouraged me to like look over my notes in undergrad. Like, I need to do something, because I originally planned to go to graduate school in the Philippines. And so because of COVID, I obviously couldn't do that anymore. And she was like, well, you need to go to graduate school here. And I was like, I don't think I want to be in debt when I could go to the Philippines for $700. So she just continuously pushed me. And even in undergraduate, she always made sure that I was happy in what I was doing. So I guess I didn't think of it because she's not like somebody that kind of like a random person that I got to know. She was my mom, but she definitely was a mentor and to get me to where I am.
So, there's a question for you in the chat. So I would like you to immediately continue, because somebody wants to know, Prince Saya, how was the job search during the pandemic?
The job search was definitely tough. I specifically was like looking for jobs in Mississippi on the Gulf Coast. And my stepdad is very well known in the community of Gulfport. So he actually had like some connections to help me get into the Mississippi Aquarium and also to the Institute of Marine Mammal Studies. And I had interviews set up and also at the DMR, which is the Department of Marine Resources. And it was positions that I honestly were overqualified for, and I just did not get the position. And there's this one person who I actually went to school with who honestly did not graduate in marine biology or anything in the marine science field. And they got the position that I had applied for at the aquarium. So I was like, that's very telling. So my job search was very rough. I just ended up working for my parents majority of the pandemic. So I'm glad that I had that stability to fall back on. But up until, honestly, I think April or May, whenever we got our congratulation emails from the Ray Fellowship, I was constantly searching day and night for jobs.
Wow. So is there anybody else who wants to share? I think there was somebody else on this panel who got hired during the pandemic. Nyasia, was it you?
Yes. Can you repeat the question?
It is, how did the job search go?
Oh. The job search was also difficult for me. As we all were aware, the pandemic ended up leading to a bunch of hiring freezes. So I got accepted, like say for jobs in some places, but they're like, oh, we can't hire you because our money is gone or XYZ. And then I've also had scenarios like Brianna mentioned where they were like, oh, you're so great, but like we've gone with someone else. And then like the someone else in question was not really super qualified, but obviously looked the part, if you know what I mean. So it was frustrating. I had a mentor of mine who I found through my school. She was an alum of my school, Carissa Justice, and she helped me sort of navigate the idea of reaching back and talking to my past mentors about whether or not they had any opportunities for me. So I ended up doing some like short-term projects for them through networking in that way, which is another cool thing about having sort of a base of people to draw from, is you can reach out when things are going wrong and being like, hey, does anyone have something I can do for XYZ amount of months? Or do you have a job for me? So that worked out. And then I ended up applying for the fellowship and finding it that way. So it was definitely rough. It took me maybe like, I had like maybe like a 5-month gap between jobs and things, but yeah.
Thank you. And I immediately want to go to Dr. Stanton, because there's this question about animals, and if anybody of you works with marine mammals or marine animals, and I see you work with zoantharians, which is like fascinating to me. So can you please tell a little bit more? Because I think when these questions are asked, people are immediately thinking of whales and dolphins, of course, because they are but I think zoantharians are actually quite cool.
Yeah, these are, I did my master's on just coral, Nigerian diversity. So the hard corals, the soft corals, invertebrates. But then the year just before the pandemic, where I do my research, the government wants to put a port there, which means it's a total 100% destruction of the reefs. And so I got involved, I guess, a little activism there. And so the main thing is to publish. So if they have published work on what's being done there, and I'm thankful that myself and a previous mentor, Dr. Dawn Phillip, we had co-authored a publication, and that actually helped like kind of hold off on it a little bit, but then the pandemic came and that halted everything. But the genetics, the secrets of the sea, there's so many, and genetics can actually unlock just a little small bit. And also you can help train students with these tiny little creatures that can tell so much about coral reefs, which, believe it or not, as we all know, make up less than 1% of the benthic, ocean floor, but just has such an amazing impact on the world. So, I get excited about it. I can talk some more, but what do other members of the panel, what do y'all work with? Any other organisms?
Yeah, so some of you work with animals? And the question is, if you do study the animals even a little, do you believe that there's more out there, like more unidentified animals that we haven't found yet, or more ocean that we have yet to discover? So this is a nice question for all of you to answer.
So I can say briefly, the research I'm doing there is no genetic information at all. So I get excited about it because every step I take on the reefs and look and take a photo of something and collect a small specimen, that may be something no one knows about. And a recent publication in July actually was the first, with genetic work that will now build more work. Now it's a race against the port. At least they will have the information, but it's a small island, and that means small island politics, and that means the highest bid wins. But at least they will not be be able to say they don't have the information. And that's the really cool part about it, I think.
Yeah, so that really sounds familiar to me, being from a small South American nation myself. So there's lots more questions, but who of you works with animals or has worked with animals in the past, and what type of animals? No.
So I currently don't do any lab or field work at my current job. But prior to sort of doing the nonprofit conservation work that I do now, I worked for a few years in a like crab biology lab. And it wasn't necessarily, I think, as discovery based as the question is asking, because it was working in a lab with a bunch of cute little crabs. And I studied sort of their locomotion, like how they move based on the way that their legs are shaped. And it was really fun. Like I don't know, I felt like I had like 50 pets every day, dealing with them and their little personalities and things. And I think, you know, that sense of like discovery and excitement about there's more in the ocean and all these things can really help drive your work, and like hold on to that, because that is, I think, what makes all of us excited about what we're doing, is about how much more there is to know. And especially if you do things that are like deep sea biology, or like, you know, there's a bunch of cool stuff happening with like hydrothermal vents and stuff like that. There's so much new species and like new things to discover. So there's definitely a lot more out there.
Okay. Anybody else worked with animals, even during, you know, like your study time? No. Yes. No. Larita, you didn't. Who of you is scuba diving? I don't see this in the, but I'm just interested. I know that Dr. Stanton is doing scuba diving, and I know there's actually a whole scuba diving video on Black and Marine Science, because there are not that many Black marine scientists apparently who are scuba diving. So you are not, none of you is.
I have completed my first portion of it, the pool dives. I haven't done my actual certification dive yet. So I'm in the process.
Wonderful. And I think, you know, we can join Dr. Stanton going to Trinidad to learn more. Yeah, I'm definitely going to stay in touch with you. You're very close to me. So there are some questions about opportunities to get into the field, and internships and scholarships. Does anyone of you know about, did any of you do an internship while you were studying, where you were really working in the field?
I will be brief, because I don't have any marine internships aside from the Doors to Conservation. I think it's scholarship, and also the Noah Hollings scholarship are two really great ones that are fully funded, that happen over the summer. And it's like research is a huge component of it. But what I will say about internships and sort of opportunities, especially as like a young undergrad, is I think and I don't know if, I think we have a lot of undergrads here already, but you sort of get into college and people are like, you gotta like do this many internships, you gotta be grinding, you gotta do whatever you can to get your foot in the door. And I think depending on where you go to school, like for some classmates, that will mean I'm doing this unpaid internship. And I think, first of all, that's a scam, first of all. But I think the bigger thing is like not to get sort of caught up in that hype, because there are tons and tons and tons of great opportunities that are paid, that won't like have you sort of choosing between like your job and your unpaid internship and your classes. So I would say there's definitely a lot of opportunities out there, and I'm sure people will mention some more than I have. But yeah, don't let anyone convince you to like work for free. That's what I would say. Especially internships.
Anybody else wants to say something about that? Actually, I have a nonprofit, and we really it really helps us when we get unpaid interns, because for a nonprofit, that's one of the ways to help.
So I would like to piggyback off of what Daiquiri said. Since I've worked at NOAA, in the past. So NOAA does have the Hollings internship program, but then they also have one for minority students, which is similar to the Hollings. And it's called the EPP program. And that might have been the one that you're talking about too, because you said it does it for 2 summers. So the NOAA Hollings actually is for 1 summer. But the EPP program is specifically for students that attend HBCUs historically, or it might be minority serving institutions, so MSIs. And so it does go for 2 summers, but I think it's only for rising juniors, I think. But then one thing that I would like to add too is, people may not think about it, is that, try to start building your network early. I think a lot of people, and this is what I would tell some of my students that would come to NOAA in the past, is that when you're a student, it's kind of like you have a golden ticket to like learn as much as you can. And so try to start building your networks. If you see people that are doing things that you're interested in doing, reach out to them and, say, hey, I want to learn more about this. I want to learn more about that. The biggest thing that they can say is no, but at least you tried. So you're trying to, build your networks. And, like not Naisha said earlier too, those could be people that you can reach back out to when you're looking for different opportunities. I need a job, I need an internship. Even before you get an internship, just start making those connections and building your networks, because I think it's really going to be important in the future and helping you to, figure out your career and grow your career. And that's something that I kind of wish I had known when I was younger and wasn't too shy to do. So if you aren't too shy, just go ahead and start now, growing your networks, building it, reaching out to people on LinkedIn, social media, however you choose to meet people. A lot of government organizations, they have names of people and email addresses and things like that on their website. So, just feel free to reach out to people. And especially in the government, a lot of people are pretty friendly, or if not, if you know someone, you can get a virtual introduction, like, hey, can you introduce me to such and such? And even at the BIMS, I'm sure there are a lot of people that work with other people, and you just kind of like make your connections that way.
Thank you for that. And I see there are some interesting things going on in the chat. But before I go into that, I'll ask you another question, because there are a lot of students who want to know, what to do. And so we've been talking about that a little bit already. But do you have any tips for incoming students?
Yes. Go to the ocean, learn to scuba dive. And I didn't say go to the ocean. Actually, Dr. Sylvia Earle said that. She's like, go to the ocean, experience it, and figure out if you like it or not.
And I think you're mentioning an incredible role model just now, Sylvia Earle. Yeah. I'm going to, you're going to know how old I am when I tell that my big reason to be interested in the ocean was Jacques-Yves Cousteau, the French marine filmmaker, but also a scientist. Anyway, so what is the most interesting fact that you've learned on your journey? Asked Imani.
I might piggyback and sort of do both. I think things to know if you are undecided but sort of interested in something like in a sort of given field, I would say register under a major like as soon as you can. You don't, I am not saying to take all of the classes in a major because you may want to switch. But I think what I really missed out on because I declared my major so late was like the sort of 2 years of meeting faculty members. Because once you're sort of in a department, that's when you really get to know the professors. That's when you sort of get emails about what events are happening. And I think that's a great resource that I think sometimes people who are undeclared, such as me, I was undeclared for, like I said, almost 2 years, miss out on. And then most interesting fact, I don't think it's sort of a specific fact, but when I was with the MESEP program, I got to go to Golden, Colorado, which is where the National Renewable Energy Lab is, and they have hydrogen fuel cell cars. I was like, we went on a hydrogen, and that was like one of the coolest things ever to me, because we got to sort of like ride in this hydrogen car, and I was like, this is high tech. It was, yeah, super cool.
So next thing will be hydrogen boats, isn't it?
Maybe, yeah.
And that will be good for marine life, because it will make less noise. So that would be good. So I see, Dr. Stanton, that you said what the most interesting fact that you learned on your journey was chatting with local fishermen. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So I guess that has to do with while I was doing my master's, I just kind of went in the water and, clueless, but saw really, really neat things from the high school. And so when I got to the master's level, I had to just step back a little and observe. My mentor once told me, not because you don't see something on the reef, that doesn't mean it's not there. So just kind of like step back, wait a little bit, and then things will kind of pop out. So I did the same with people. So the local fishermen, they would kind of start saying, when is the lowest tides, and how to judge the tides by the moon. And if you go in this section, you see different things there. And then from that conversation, then came like invites to like, hey, you want to go grab lunch, or you want to go, we're roasting red fish over here. And it's amazing that eating a meal with the locals actually really gives trust between both parties. And that really is kind of like the human factor. You step back, you gain more knowledge to the folks who've seen the tides ebb and flow, then it helps you with your research. Actually, it cuts down many years that you having to figure it out.
Oh, that was something unexpected that came true. Thank you. So I have a question, which may be a bit of a weird question to you, because I've been trying to get students and young people here interested in marine science, but then there's no opportunity for them to study marine biology in Suriname. So what would you advise to people? And I think Dr. Stanton, I'm not sure if there's a marine biology stream or faculty in Trinidad. Did you go abroad to do your studies?
So that's what I did, but inadvertently, because like I said, I got through sports, I got a soccer scholarship, and then the opportunities was here. Now the locations are still back in my native country, but the opportunity to travel, funding, um, you know, is there. And I know other students, like in Trinidad, they use the University of the West Indies. So some of them go to Barbados, some Jamaica, and then some at the University in Trinidad. So that could be one local option for students there. Of course, the main thing is funding. That's the next thing.
So I'm interested, Brianna, if you could tell us more about the Philippines experience, because where I would have to send students out from Suriname to go, for example, to the US, you were actually going out very far to the Philippines, isn't it? Did I get that right?
Yes. So in the Philippines, the island that my family lives on, there's actually a couple universities. And the closest one is Silliman University, located in Dumaguete, Negros Oriental, Philippines. And so they actually they have a big marine biology program there. And yeah, so it's being like marine biologist and studying marine biology in the Philippines is pretty common. I believe some more of the other colleges on that specific island also focus on that, but the Philippines also has like 7,000 islands. And then the island that I'm speaking of in general is in the southern region of the Philippines. So I'm not sure if like the neighboring islands also would have a marine based programs as well, or if they have to come to Negros Oriental specifically to get more so of their marine biology fix. But there is that.
And is there anybody else who wants to say something about, what to do if you don't have this opportunity close by home? How could I motivate Surinamers to become marine biologists? We have this big sea and we don't have marine biologists in Suriname. That's quite a bad situation.
I can speak a bit. It's different for me because I grew up in Philly in the US, so it's not quite like going to another country, but I didn't really grow up in a coastal city, or like I went to the shore like once a year. And in my college, we don't have a marine science major. And in fact, we only have one official marine biologist who's a coral scientist. So the marine sort of sciences were largely inaccessible to me. My major was in earth science, actually. And I worked in like a fossil lab at my school. But the way that I got involved in actual like marine biology was through summer programs. And a lot of summer programs, if you are international, do take international students from like small island developing states and things like that. So it's something you might have to research. I did an REU summer program, research experience for undergraduates at Scripps, called the SURF program. And that's kind of how I got involved. But the way that it happened was it was tangentially related to the work that I was doing already at my school. It just wasn't marine science based. So I was doing like fossil biomechanics, and then I went to Scripps, and then I did crab biomechanics. So I would say maybe find a field that's, related interest wise. A lot of people do maybe biology and like study like genetics or something, and then they go and do a summer program in like marine science and then relate it to the skills that you've learned in your major. And that could be a way to go about it. It's definitely not like you have to like major in marine science and like go on the beach all the time and learn how to scuba dive and do all these things before you're 22, but you're not going to get into the field. When in actuality, our field is actually really dependent on your graduate research or your post undergrad experience in the first place. So it's totally fine if you're doing something that's like tangentially related, or like in engineering and things. And a lot of places actually appreciate if you have more sort of interdisciplinary background.
So I would like to add something to that too, because as you guys were talking, some ideas popped into my brain. As scientists, we basically have to just understand the process of, how to look at the data, how to analyze it, and how to, come up with our own conclusions. So I think getting the students, access to the data and the information that they need, I don't think that they necessarily have to be near the ocean or in the ocean, but if they have access to the information and the data that they need to, study the science, I think, that would be very, very helpful. And then maybe also having people to kind of step in as mentors to, lead some of the analytical processes and projects and things like that. I think that would be very helpful because when students are looking for jobs and different internships and things like that, I sat on the review board for some of the EPP scholarships at NOAA, and I noticed that, what they were looking for is students that already had experience. And so, it's kind of hard if you haven't done anything, and that's very, very true. But, sometimes there are things that you can do by but not really having, the access. So sometimes you may have to kind of create access or create projects, in your own area, or create a project in your area that may be based on data from a different area and things like that. So I think sometimes we have to be creative. And I think COVID has really taught us how to pivot. And so we really have to, kind of figure out, okay, we need to pivot again for the students who don't have access. And that's something that I'm always thinking about, for my nonprofit as well.
Okay, so I actually lost track of time. We're over our closing time. I hope everybody enjoyed doing this. Thank you for being here, for sharing, for joining us today. And if you have any questions about today's panel, please follow the panelists on their socials, and we'll insert the social media in the chat so you can follow these people. I would say I hope to stay in contact with all of you, because I'm planning ocean expeditions every year. I did it for the first time this year, but I want to get young people interested into this. And I hope I could interest some of you to help them to collect the data and to analyze it. So thank you very much, everybody. Very inspiring. And I hope the students liked it as well and are now thinking of a career in marine science. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much to all of the panelists for joining us today. We will make sure you guys get those social media handles for them. But just a quick final remarks. Make sure to follow Black and Marine Science. We've got a lot more events this week. And I hope you guys are ready for some free goodies. Where are my folks hailing from the DMV? Put something in the chat. Turn your video on so I can see you. Let's see. Raise your hands on video. Okay, I see somebody's from the, okay, we've got a few people from the DMV. So for the first, I believe you guys all have tickets to the National Aquarium for this weekend, correct?
Yes, we do.
Well, let's see. What is, okay, I have a question. The first, okay, I'll do a couple questions. What is the nickname that Monique Pohl has? Did anybody grab that?
Sloth Lady?
Yes, okay, you got another ticket to the National Aquarium where you can bring a friend, a family member, or whoever you want with you. My next question is, what So we have a few Ray scholars here. What does Ray stand for? You guys can come off mute and tell me your answers. Anybody? Nobody? Okay, let's ask another question. Who got hired during the pandemic? Who remembers? There were, was it 2 or 3 people? 3 people. Okay, so I need one person to give me the name. So I need 3 different people to give me 3 different names. I've got 3 more tickets so that you can take a friend, a family member, or whomever with you. Ooh, you guys are quiet. Oh, here we go.
Can I say 2 names?
You can say 1.
Oh, okay. I remember it was a male. Was it wait. I'm trying to see the name.
The one person
was
said
it
Brianna already. Zachary?
Yes.
Yeah.
One person said Brianna in the chat, and
I said Daiquiri.
yes, one person said Daiquiri. So we've got one more. We need one more answer. I see 2 people put Brianna in the chat.
I think there's one in the chat as well. Yeah. another
Asia.
one.
Okay, wonderful. So we've got Imani. Did I pronounce that right?
Yes.
We have Lenija. Who else won? Samia too. Did I pronounce that right?
It's Samia.
Samia. Okay, and we had somebody say Niaja. I don't know. Are panelists eligible? I don't know.
Yes, I saw Rita put one in there. Go ahead and accept it.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much to everybody that won. We will, I guess, be in contact with Ivan to let you guys know how to get your tickets. And that's all, folks. Oh, it looks like Larita wants to donate hers. The other person that said Niaja was, okay, Demonier? Demonier? Okay.
Demonier.
Demonier. Okay, and I'm writing down those names right now.
Yeah, this is awesome.
Okay, it looks like the tickets will be at the front desk with your name, so just bring your person with you.
Perfect. Wait, sorry, can they use that on a separate occasion?
I believe,
or is it for this weekend?
I believe the ticket is for this weekend for
Okay.
There's the Saturday time ticket slot.
Okay, got it.
All right. Well, yes. Up next we have BIMS Cares, a live Q&A with our therapist. Starts at 6 o'clock. Make sure you guys tune in. It'll be streamed on YouTube. I will see you guys there.